Hey guys, this is Melek and welcome to the very first episode of NitroNights Stories, your bi-weekly podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for the live recording session. I'm very excited. Maybe a few words to myself. My name is Melek Balgün and I'm an esports host. I'm hosting together with Froskerin the NitroNights weekly esports racing news. And of course, after a huge launch of OverTake.gg, your esports racing hub, we're gonna introduce this new format, NitroNight Stories. And of course, we do have a fabulous guest waiting in the wings for us to join. It's no one less than Jarl Teien, who's driving for G2, and he has joined the roster in February 2019. And I'm really excited to talk to him, and he should be in the line right now. So Jarl, can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I really can't complain. We had a fantastic recording session for the latest episode of NitroNights, and I'm really excited to talk to you now, and of course our Twitch chat also being with us. So guys at home, thank you so much for joining us for the recording. If you have any questions towards me or Jarl during this podcast, feel free to type it away in Twitch chat, and I'll maybe come back to it if I find it worthy enough. And Jarl, where are you right now? Are you at home?
I'm at home, yeah. I live by myself, so.
Nice, but it looks like you have a very nice racing corner set up.
Yeah, it's in the corner, ready to be used later on. Using a G29 with kind of a homemade seat and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's enjoyable.
That sounds really, really nice. Maybe you'll post a photo of your rig later on with the hashtag NitroNights, just as our viewers, hopefully, and of course listeners as well. And I mean, let's jump straight in, y'all. Tell me a bit about yourself. I introduced you already, but there's lots more to say about you, right?
Right. I'm 26. I live here in Norway. City's Tønsberg, if you've ever heard of that. I've been sim racing since 2006, so quite a lot of experience through various different games. I have a pretty nice job right now that I do on the side of sim racing, so I try to balance the two, sim racing and working. But obviously, I strive to make sim racing a full living.
So you already had a few known teams that you were representing in your sim racing career. But in February 2019, you joined G2, one of the biggest esports organizations out there. What goes through one's mind?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's one of the biggest teams out there in terms of esports, and it's an honor to be a part of their team and to show off their logo on my car and when I do the NASCAR races.
Of course. So what was your last race?
My last race was at Charlotte in my NASCAR race. So didn't go quite to plan. Sorry, Atlanta. It didn't go quite to plan with lack of practice. But headed towards the middle of the season and towards the late of the season, I'll put way more practice into it and try to, get those results in.
Of course. So at the start of the season, a lot of things change in the sim racing world. And as an outstanding person, one might not see the difficulties sim racing or competitive sim racing can bring towards the sim racers. Can you tell us a bit more about the challenges of sim racing altogether, and maybe even from season to season?
It's very difficult to stay on top of your game at all times because the competition always improves every single season. So if you just stay at your same level to the next season, then you'll fall behind immediately. So you need to stay on top of your talent, and you need to continually practice and make sure you're always up there.
Of course, because it feels like at some point the racers, even in traditional motorsports, have always found the perfect apex, have always found the perfect way to address a certain track, and sometimes you still need that tenth of a second to finally be able to hold that cup in your hand. How do you achieve that? At some point, you're already racing perfectly, but are there any other adjustments you can make in sim racing to maybe get out that little time advantage in respective to your competitors?
Right. So you always strive for that little extra bit, and you can feel like you're doing everything right. You can hit out all those apexes perfectly, and you still like, where's that last tenth? And it's all in those fine, small details that not everybody sees. And that's when the best drivers show their talent. They can find those small tenths without with the obvious eye that you can't see. Not everyone can find that.
Can it come down to the configuration of the car even?
Oh, the in terms of the NASCAR races that I do, the setups matter quite a lot. So I mean, 99% of the practice that we prepare for those races are down to the setup of the car. But when it comes to the Porsche races and F1 or whatever on R Factor, it comes more down to the driver. So it depends on the competition in the car, but yeah, obviously there's different ways of finding that level last tenth.
Okay, so looking on your most favorite racing sims, what would it be?
That's a difficult one to answer. I feel like in terms of the feel of the car and the tire model, I think R Factor has a slight advantage. But in terms of the whole package, I think iRacing is quite far ahead of everything else. They have laser scan tracks. They have the whole community with official races and all that stuff, and that's a more it caters to more people, I feel like.
All right. So in sim racing, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to race this weekend in R Factor 2 and switch over to iRacing like 3 days later. How do you guys manage it? Like when
It's
I played Counter-Strike 1.6, you know? So that was set in stone. I wasn't confronted with a different game, but you guys, you sim racers, have to be so flexible. How do you do that?
when it comes to sim racing, I feel like if you're a good driver, you can convert to a different sim relatively quick. It's like comparing two different maps on CS. If you're good on Dust 2, then you might always be good on Overpass. But you can adjust, and you need to practice, and you need to adapt your strategies and whatnot. So it's kind of like comparing maps rather than two completely different games.
All right, that makes sense. So, what do you prefer?
When it comes
Like,
to,
where's your preference? Yeah, when it comes to the Sims, or what does
uh,
a sim need to be preferred by you?
I think a sim needs to be the handling of the car. Basically, it needs to be hard to drive, but also easy to be on the edge once you've practiced it. If that makes sense. It's
It
it's a hard
makes
one to answer, but I prefer Arctic 2 right now in terms of just the feel of the car.
Okay, so regarding the hard questions, I mean, it's not that we're here for fun, right? So we want to get
Right.
to the deep core of sim
No,
racing. Just kidding.
good point. Good point.
So that's really really interesting. So there are more than there's one more than one sim race at G2, correct?
Yes, there's Alex McCollum. He's my teammate over at the NASCAR side, and obviously Nils is taking part in events, and our newcomer is also taking parts in Assetto Corsa and that Competizione game.
Okay, so how do you guys at G2 help each other? I mean, you're still competing on your own, obviously, but on the other side, you're still a team, even no matter the discipline. So how how did you manage to find ways in supporting each other?
Right. So right now, our support is more coming down to PR and Twitch and Twitter and all that stuff. Nils helps me a lot with that. And when it comes to between me and Alex McCollum, behind the scenes, we're not actually sharing the setups. We're more showing our G2 team rather than swapping setups. Behind the scenes, before the whole team situation in 2019, there were already teams present, and those stayed behind the teams that show now. So if you look at those NASCAR races, if you see two teammates on the screen, they might not be teammates behind the screen. They might be on two different teams.
That's very interesting because usually if you present a team under one color, in this case G2, one might think that they are actually that's like the beauty of sim racing. There are so many components to it, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So obviously, at one point, you want to work with that teammate that you show on G2. We obviously help each other in terms of like I said, the PR stuff and Twitch and Twitter, and you want to help show off your team, and that's what I like to do.
So last year you already competed in R Factor 2 in Le Mans, and
Yeah,
you
correct.
finished second.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's for a different team. So behind the scenes, like I said, I'm on a team called NX Racing, and we had an alliance with another R Factor 2 team called Sancho. And I hooked up with them, and we worked really, really hard for the R Factor 2 endurance race. And yeah, we finished second, even though we should have been first. But yeah, second is still pretty decent.
It's absolutely. I mean, there are some people that say the second place is the first loser, which is kind of harsh, but at least you get to take metal home, right? So
Right.
there's that. I'm just trying to poke into the wound, as you can see, because there's a big race waiting ahead of us. Are you competing in next weekend's 24 Hours of Le Mans?
Yes, correct. So I was contacted by a team that wanted me to be with Fernando and Rubens, which is two really big names, and yeah, it's a crazy opportunity. So it's me, Rubens Barrichello, Fernando Alonso, and Oli Pakala, so another sim racer. Yeah, massive opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, pretty much every sim racer out there is also a fan of traditional motorsports because, I mean, that's what we bleed, right? So we love cars, we love races, we love our athletes, we love the sportsmanship, we love the whole idea behind competitive races. How did it make you feel to hear that you're going to join that very team with those two big names?
Oh, it's insane! I've been watching Formula One since I was really young, and when you see those names that you've been watching, and a few years later, here you are, on the same team as them, preparing to do a 24-hour race. It's kind of surreal, and I think a lot of other people feel the same way in this race. They're also signed up with other big names like Juan Pablo Montoya, other massive Formula One names.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing that the traditional motorsports and sim racing like mixes up a little? Like
I think it's
have
great.
athletes. Yeah, what's your take on it exactly? Like take us through your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I don't think other esports have the same opportunity like we have. So we have a fantastic opportunity in terms of the real counterpart. You know, coming to the virtual side, you don't really have any other esport. You don't have a real CS:GO team or whatever that comes to CS:GO. But yeah, all those real drivers coming for the competition that they strive for in real life, they kind of achieve the same way in the virtual side, and I think they're kind of surprised by the level of competition that some of the sim drivers have. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for both parts. I feel like for them to learn something and for us to learn something from them.
Absolutely. So could you tell us something that you could take away by working together with those two very well-known athletes?
I think there's one word, and that's dedication. The the number of practices, I've seen Fernando join, how many hours he's already put into this. It's nuts. So dedication is definitely the takeaway from this.
So we have had a few negative voices amongst our professional athletes and traditional motorsports. Very few negative voices, by the way. So
Yeah.
they usually people tend to put too much weight into negative factors because they polarize. They pull all the attention towards themselves, and people forget about all the positivity around that topic, all the other positivity around that topic. Um, is that something that you have already that you faced in your team, or I mean, you already said that your drivers are very dedicated, no matter if they're holding a real life, if they're steering a real life car, or if it's in the sim. Um, what do you think, like in general, looking on to the professional athletes come into sim racing? Are they taking it serious? Let's put it that way.
I think a lot of them are taking it serious, but obviously there's other that take it less serious. But I feel like those that aren't taking it serious, I think they'll change their mind when they see the number of people that put effort into this, or they'll just disappear. So I think if they start taking it serious, they'll actually learn something. I see Fernando or see Lewis Hamilton not needing sim racing. Same with Kimi Räikkönen. I feel like they're missing out on a bigger opportunity to learn the level of competition that exists. Um, but yeah, obviously there's small details in the sim racing world that isn't perfect to real life. So obviously they'll maybe not complain, but mention it that this isn't that realistic or whatever. But as a whole, as a package, the uh, I think it comes down to uh, proper racing, and that's you can find that in sim racing. You can find real racing on the track. You see real battles. There's two guys fighting each other. I think that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. And we do have other names in the sim racing realms coming from traditional motorsports that are quite blooming, right? Like Charles Leclerc, for example, being a very avid streamer himself these days.
Yeah, for sure. Guys like Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, Russell, all those guys are taking this opportunity during the lockdown for them to show their brand and their Twitch, and if they're following, they're boosting their following massively, catering to a lot of young people. So for that, I think it's great. They're both boosting uh, their following, like I said, but also they're catering to a lot of young people that showing that racing is fun and it's great.
Yes, exactly. Like I was thinking it to myself. Like I was sitting there reading all those comments like it's just a game. So what? We're still taking it seriously. We're still competing and we still have that competitive gene in us. And it offers so many opportunities to take advantage of the situation. Like you're forced inside, your races are not happening. So why aren't you utilizing this situation to your own benefit, like all the names you just mentioned are doing? Like, is there maybe something that you would tell someone who thinks that it's not worthy their while?
If I could show them that it's a good chance, I would, but obviously they need to find that themselves. I feel if they tried it once or twice, they could really then they could see how useful it is for them to use their downtime for that kind of stuff. So they're definitely missing out, and I wish I could show them what they're missing out on.
Yeah. And we had a very recent comment about the discipline not being like competitive worthy because there is the factor of the material damage missing out. Like it was implemented that you guys just don't take it serious because if you crash in the first turn, you just get out of the sim and enjoy your day. Is it really like that?
That would be stupid if their opinion is that. I mean, if you crash, I mean, you're out of the race. But that's if you did something stupid or someone else did something stupid. So I mean, I don't really know what their comments is really about. Well, if they're only saying negative things, then they're kind of ruining their own future as well in terms of uh, boosting Formula One or whatever. Whoever made that comment, if it was a Formula One driver, then they're kind of ruining their own boost as well. With a lot of young people starting to watch F1.
Yes, I was really wondering because I mean they're talking about a branch that is so involved in what they're doing to earn their money, you know? Well, because our sim racers are mostly motorsports fans, and for for the sim races, they're kind of heroes because they're doing what all the sim racers actually want to do at some point. They want to race a real car in real life, and those people are have managed that and achieved that goal already. And hearing someone talk down on those exact people that are actually having so high thoughts about that very person is kind of,
Right.
isn't that irony? Like, what is
It's
going
kind of
on?
kind of hilarious. Yeah. I mean, I think for the future, I think sim racing is definitely the way into Formula One, or a starting point. I feel like before, obviously, karting was a big thing, but I think in 10 years, I think majority of the people that go into motorsports start with sim racing. So it's just the way things will turn. I feel like virtual stuff will just be bigger and bigger and bigger.
That makes absolute sense. I mean, looking on the sim racing scene altogether, we have met 2 years ago on the Porsche Sim Racing Summit in Leipzig, and sim racing has come a big way since then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely exploded. I think I read an article just today. Sim racing is has increased by 1,000% or something, or the exposure, which is insane just in the last few months. So you can just imagine how it's going to be in 1, 2, 3, 10 years.
Absolutely, and as you already said, it is a perfect symbiosis, like between two different disciplines of one family, kind of, because it's all motorsports. The one is happening outside on the asphalt on the tarmac, and the other is happening in your living gaming kids room in your sim racing rig or with your small Logitech wheel in front of your PlayStation, for example. You know,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, that's also the beauty of it. The beauty of it. Sim racing has a very low entry barrier, don't you think?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm still with one of the most cheapest wheels here with a G29. That's the lowest you can pretty much get, and you can race against people with massive $50,000 rigs, but you could still race at very similar pace. Obviously, you will have small advantages or big advantages with the better wheel and rig, but you can still come really far with a basic level wheel. And I think that's the beauty with it. You don't need a massive budget to become competitive.
Hmm. That was also a question from our chat, by the way. Like sim racing events with well-known names from motorsports are growing. More events are showing up and taking place. And what is your prognosis on the next few years? Like we're already having the virtual edition of the 24 hours race of Le Mans, which can't take place due to the COVID situation. What's going to happen next? Will maybe um, racing series happen 50% in the sim and 50% on the track? Like, is that even possible?
I think what's going to happen, I think it's going to go back to normal once the COVID situation goes back. But I feel like the level of sim racing will obviously increase, but also on the downtime, when on the off time when Formula One isn't running or whatever motorsport, I think on the off weekends or during the winter, I think maybe there might be some virtual events. That'd be cool to watch, a virtual Formula One race or whatever. Um, I think that'd be great, and I think that's gonna happen in the future.
Utilize the situation. I mean, you can't race outside because it's winter. And
Right,
then, of course, you can take the cars into warmer places on Earth, obviously, but also like utilize the downtime to your own benefit, like building out your reach, your fans, and maybe gaining more loyalty towards the colors that you represent. And do you
right.
think? I mean, we already have like the biggest names in motorsports involved in sim racing. Um, who are you missing? Like, is there a manufacturer or a brand that you're missing in sim racing and would like to see compete?
It's a difficult one. I feel like the majority is on there right now. That has at least taken part in something. You see Mercedes involved, you see Ferrari, BMW, you see a lot of big names. I mean, especially Porsche, they're involved as well. I mean, I can't really think of anyone. Obviously, the more the merrier. I mean, it'll just increase day by day.
Who would you like to see compete in the sim? Who's not competing
Oh, the
already?
driver. Oof. I'd like to see. I would honestly like to see Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton. I'd like to see him compete in the sim. He said already he doesn't want to or doesn't need to, but I think he should. I think he should try. I'd like to see his talent in terms of sim racing.
Yes, maybe do you think that maybe a reason could be that he's afraid, or maybe afraid is the wrong word, or maybe anxious about not being able to replicate what he did on the racing track in the sim?
I think he just has too much other things to do, honestly. But I don't know. There maybe might be something to do with
Could
that.
Yeah, could it be a reason for maybe different driver? It doesn't have to be Hamilton himself in this
Oh yeah,
case.
I there might be a reason for that for somebody to be a little scared or whatever. And maybe they can't show their full talent. They're scared of maybe the ramp of learning that their learning curve for them might be too big or whatever. They've seen they've seen other drivers take a long time to get used to it. Maybe they're just not interested in that sort. But I think everyone should give it a go.
Hmm. And you can only get better. I mean, it's a whole different discipline, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we have another question from our chat, by the way. Brazi asks, are there any games that could change the sim racing scene in the near future?
Any current games?
Yeah, or simulations. Like
I think
anything that could change the sim racing scene in the near future.
I mean, the more price pool will just increase the competition. I think money will drive the scene for sure. I mean, if the money started to dwindle, the competition would drop. So with more and more sponsors coming in, the competition will just get stronger and stronger, and that's what's happening right now. Any top series you're looking at now, the competition is insane. F1 Esports, the Porsche series on iRacing, just insane level of competition.
And it's getting not less, right? Like the sim racing idea is getting carried outwards into the world, and due to more events taking place, more sim racers start competing in a more competitive way, actually, because I think a lot of people don't even know that there are like real competitions that it can take place in their sims, right?
Oh yeah, anywhere you can go, you see competitions. Um, in almost any game, you can win money or just pride. So I think with with months going by, that it's just going to increase more and more, and anyone can compete, and that's what's great.
That's exactly, and the beauty of sim racing is also like, for example, if you start playing League of Legends or Dota, you're completely overwhelmed by the massive information that comes towards you. You have to figure out how everything works and what you have to do, and find ways to figure out how to achieve your set goal, and stuff like that. But in sim racing, it's for starters, it's quite easy. You have to race your car and not crash it into the wall and reach the finish line. And that's an advantage sim racing has, right?
Right. You don't need to be a genius to be fast on a sim. But yeah, definitely with what you mentioned with League of Legends and other games, CS:GO even. I mean, there's just so many details and things you need to remember to be good. But with sim racing, you just need to pick up a wheel and go fast, with the exception of learning setups and adjusting the car. Obviously, that yields a lot of time, but you can have an engineer to do that for you once you get to the top level. And yeah, for sure.
That's great. So I just have to go fast. I can go fast. I'm good at going fast in cars. So let's get back to the 24 hours of Le Mans. Next weekend, it's finally taking place. We already spoke about what Le Mans, what participating amongst those big names means to you. But let's talk about the 24 hours of Le Mans. When was the first time you watched a race?
The first Le Mans race?
Race, if digital or not, doesn't matter. Can you still remember?
I think the first Le Mans race must have been 2009, 2010. Back then, I wasn't really interested in endurance racing, more Formula One. But obviously, my interest has widened since then. So uh, probably 2010, something like that. I saw Le Mans.
Okay, so now you're going to compete yourself 24 hours. Of course, not in one go for you. You have a team.
Right.
You're gonna take turns. Do you already have a plan amongst your team? Like, how do you going to approach without spoiling too much, obviously? Because we don't want spoilers. You still need your tactics because that's also something that most people underestimate. Like that you need a strategy. Like you need tactics to approach a race like that, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you go into the race, blank, you're not gonna succeed. You need luck then on your side for you to succeed. So you need definitely to be prepared with every single different situation. And right now, that's what we're doing. We're testing all the different weather conditions, all the different tire options, stink lengths, and yeah, obviously right now in terms of who drives and at what point, we don't really know. It can depend on a lot of factors, but I think Fernando is starting the race, so that's the only thing I can give away in terms of strategy.
Of course, I won't bug you too much. Don't worry about it, because of course, strategy is like the holy grail of approaching
Right.
competition, and I don't want to take this out from you. But I mean, still, 24 hours amongst four people is still a lot of time to actually to race. How do you prepare for that? Like, what is your personal approach to surviving such a long time in your in your rig?
It's coming down to making sure you have a lot of sleep. You can't go into it already lack of sleep. You'll strain your mental side quite quickly. So you need to make sure you have a lot of sleep ahead of time. You need to make sure you're in the right place, and that just make sure you're calm, relaxed. You've had food. Just just make sure you're ready. Like the first or the hour before the race, I don't even do any driving at all. I'm just relaxed, making sure I'm calm, low heart rate, and then that gets me into the groove. If I'm there sweating, driving hard, just the hour before the race or the before I get into the car, I won't do well. But you just need that calmness, and I'm sure you have the same experience when you played CS. You need to be calm and relaxed and cool.
Absolutely, but to achieve that kind of mindset, that requires a lot of training and a lot of routine. Like, what advice could you give to rookies that want to try endurance racing, besides not overstraining their focus, obviously, right before the race? Is there something that you can, like, from your experience, like something that you have done different up until to a certain point and then switched up because you found a better way to make it work?
There's it's the things I already said that comes down to it, like making sure you're in the right place and whatnot. But once you actually do the race, it's a lot about confidence. If you go into it scared or uncertain, then that's just gonna increase all the mistakes, and you'll potentially crash, and that's not good for a 24-hour race. Crash immediately as you go in the car.
No, we don't need that. Exactly. So, does it put a lot of pressure on your shoulders knowing that you're racing amongst a team that contains names like Alonso Barichello?
I think
Or
right
does
now, I think it's potentially the biggest race for my career in terms of the success. If we have success, there might be a big change for me. Um, but no, I don't really feel massive pressure. I'll just do what I do as before, and then just get on with the job. Nothing. Obviously, it's a huge pride, and I don't want to fail them, but I want to go afterwards and think I wouldn't do anything different. So if I make a mistake, then that's just down to my. I would do the same mistake for a simple race, if that makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's for a big
So
name or whatever.
you're not intimidated by your team drivers. That's what you're saying.
No, not really. Just
Yeah, you're
just
not
getting on with the job.
putting exactly. So you're not putting too much pressure on your shoulders. Like that is something I feel a lot of players actually miscalculate. Like they want to do so good that they're failing themselves in kind of way.
Yeah, they're setting this huge bar for themselves that, I need to succeed. I need to do this lap at this point or whatever. You're just not going to do well at that point. You need to be very realistic. If you know your pace might be a few tenths off what you feel like you need to succeed with, then that's it. Then you need to just go at that pace and make sure you're comfortable, because like I said, it's a 24-hour race. It doesn't matter if you're 1/10 quicker every single lap. If you crash on the fifth lap, it doesn't matter. So you just be confident and calm and relaxed, then you succeed. And that's the way I go into it.
Yeah, safe and steady wins the race, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's so interesting, and I could keep on talking to you for hours about this topic because it's so interesting to be able to well to get all those answers from a sim racer that is facing um, that that task, that upcoming task next weekend amongst those big names. Um, did you train? You obviously train together, right? Is there a
Yeah,
kind
we're
of
in
team meetings
the
or anything? How do they look? Like, tell us something about driving with such big names.
so almost every night we go on Discord and we chat to each other. We talk about the car. We just a setup, obviously. So we make sure all the setup adjustments are catered to all four drivers, because we all have to drive the same type of car. So we have to adjust our driving style. We discuss all that stuff. So I mean, I'm just stunned, like I said, with the dedication that Fernando and Rubens have. They're really fun to work with. You can tell they're extremely experienced. They can feel any change with a car. It's nuts. You can change like the tiniest thing, and they're like, oh, okay, it's slightly more unstable in this corner, or it's better in this corner. They can immediately feel that on the first lap. So I mean, just insane.
That's crazy. But Jarl, sadly, our time is over. Thank you so, so much for this amazing interview and your time, obviously. And
Thank you for inviting me.
I wish you best of luck for next weekend. And I'm gonna watch you guys compete and win, hopefully. No
Thank you very
pressure.
much.
No
No, no, no
pressure.
pressure at
just
all.
just support.
Oh, I will get
All right,
I'll get
y'all.
pressured now because of you.
Oh no, don't worry about it. It's just me. It's just Melly sitting here
All right,
in a
all right.
tiny studio talking to you. No, amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for all the insight you gave us into sim racing and your thoughts and takes on certain topics. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
And guys, that's it. That was our first podcast. Thank you so much for joining us during the live recording session in Twitch, obviously, and of course for listening. And I can't wait to be back and welcoming you for the second episode of NitroNights Stories. Good night.